is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Africa's biggest football extravaganza kicked off on June the 21st in Egypt, and 24 teams are battling it out to be named champions of Africa. Thousands of excited fans have waited for 2 years to see their heroes perform, and the neutrals eagerly await the inevitable upsets. The Africa Cup of Nations has long been used as a springboard for African players to showcase their talent as they seek to play in bigger leagues, and the new expanded format provides even more opportunities for players. After a week of wonderful football, we take a look at the tournament so far, which teams are performing to expectations, and also who the dark horses may be. I'm Mahir Mutua. Welcome to Talk Africa. Welcome to the program. Now, the 32nd edition of the Africa Cup of Nations was initially scheduled to be held in Cameroon, but last-minute changes brought the tournament to Egypt. So how does the country that has won the trophy a record 7 times feel about this? Our correspondent Iyasa Hakim brings us more from Cairo.
The mood in the country has been one of excitement with the arrival of the African Cup of Nations. This edition is the biggest in its history, with 24 nations competing, up from 16 in previous years.
I'm very happy. All Egyptians are very happy about this. There's a feeling of great pride about hosting the Cup. We're satisfied with our team's performance, and we have a very good chance of winning the tournament.
Egypt had only a short 4 months of preparations after Cameroon had stepped down from hosting the competition. 6 stadia in 4 cities, the transportation links, and accommodation were already on time for the African visitors, and it has delivered an impressive opening ceremony as well.
This year's tournament the teams have been very good. Tactically, even the underdogs you can see, they've been trying to challenge the big games, the big names in various games. So the quality of the tournament is increasing.
Who's going to win the cup this year?
Most definitely Uganda, most definitely.
As for the competition itself, it brings together a host of international stars.
It's really good. We saw most of those players at the World Cup in Russia, and they're here to witness firsthand our excellent preparations and infrastructure. The competition on the pitch is fierce between those stars, which raises the quality of the tournament.
There were surprises. Newcomers Benin held off favourites Ghana, and Uganda shocked Congo to earn a big chance of qualification to the second round.
Came all the way from Uganda to support my mighty Uganda Cranes, and I believe we are doing better. Our team has been improving with time, and they are doing better. I believe with God we are going to do better. We are going to keep on winning to the next round.
The quality of the top teams are so close, there's no clear favourites to win the cup so far.
It's been a busy first week in the tournament with several surprising results. However, the second 2 weeks are expected to be even more exciting as the teams progress into the knockout stages. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Right now, joining me to discuss the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations are from Egypt, Marwan Said, sports analyst and general manager at kingfoot.com. With me here in studio are Sami Muraya, sports journalist and analyst, and Simeon Mulama, former Kenyan international. Gentlemen, welcome to Talk Africa. Now, the Africa Cup of Nations has been on for over a week now. Marwan, I'll just begin with you. Give us an idea of how the tournament is going so far, which teams and players are performing to expectations, and who, in your opinion, hasn't gotten into their stride yet?
I think so far the tournament has been a mixture of excitement, and other games have not been up to par or up to what we have expected. We can basically say that Egypt have done very well to get the results to seal the qualification to the next round, as well as Morocco have done well, Algeria have done well as well, and Nigeria. They have shown that they're here to do business, basically. Other teams, such as Tunisia, have not had the luck that they have hoped. Two goalkeeping errors lost them 4 points, and they're now fighting for a spot to qualify from the group. Other teams such as Namibia have not scored in 2 games, and so it's not always what you expect. Some teams do well, others don't, but this is what the tournament is all about, the excitement and expected and unexpected things. Regarding the players, some players have made a big tournament for themselves, like Mahmoud Hassan Trezeguet of Egypt, Noureddin Amrabat of Morocco, and Youssef Attal, the fullback of Algeria. They've been very good this tournament. Other players have been expected to lead their team, have not done well. Like, for example, Knowledge Musona of Zimbabwe has not had a very good tournament, and it was expected that he could lead this team out of the group, and now they are facing the likelihood of elimination.
All right, gentlemen, I'll bring it to you here in studio. Sami, same question to you. Who's shining, who's not so far?
Well, like he said, the North African teams have basically been able to shine so far. But there are a lot of factors that we can be able to look at when we look at that, because we're talking about North African teams that are basically playing at home. These are teams that understand the climate very well. These are the temperatures they play in, day out. So that's why most teams from sub-Saharan Africa are struggling. You'll notice that most of them, where they did their camps, apart from the teams that went to, say, Dubai, most of the others that went to Europe, the weather there is not the same as the weather that we have in Cairo, and that's why you're noticing right now they're getting really tired, and you notice that most of the times, most of the teams getting into the second half look really lethargic, and they're unable to keep the tempo of the game going, and it becomes a problem for them. In terms of the teams that have so far lived up to expectation, I'd talk about Nigeria. Nigeria struggling in their first game, waiting until the final moments before Igalo scored the winning goal for that match. The goal scored around the 88th minute. We didn't expect that Nigeria were going to struggle against Burundi. Looking at that match, Burundi were the underdogs. Everyone expected that it was going to be a walkover for Nigeria, more than one goal scored, but then Burundi also showed up to the table. They showed up to the pitch, and they didn't just roll over for Nigeria to beat them. Another team I'd want to talk about right now, I know he's already spoken about Egypt, Algeria, and Morocco. Of course, more or less they've secured they've secured their positions in the next round, in the knockout rounds. But then I also want to talk about Mali. So much expected of Mali, struggling by drawing against Angola in their match. Oh, sorry, against Tunisia, right. And then again beating Mauritania in their opening match.
4-1 in that game. Yes. I'll bring in Simeon right now. Just a quick verdict for you of how the tournament is going so far.
Well, so far, I think all the teams, especially Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, I think they're living up to expectations. Mali have a different opinion about that. They've come, the last 5 years, they've done a good job in their structures in terms of their youth football. You look at their participation at the international level in Africa and also at the World Cup, U17s, U19s, they've been doing a good job. And, you look at the history of these players playing now for the senior team, they've progressed very well. So I think Mali is doing a good job. They got a good result at first. Getting a tie against Tunisia is not an easy result for a team like Mali that, that are just putting up their structures. So, for the usual suspects, I think they are doing a good job. The Egypts, the Nigerias, the Algerias. We saw Algeria in the World Cup. We saw Egypt at the World Cup. So the guys are doing a good job. I'm just disappointed with the newcomers, because most of these guys, the new teams, they have players that don't necessarily play in the continent. They play outside the continent, so you expect them to at least have some confidence in the tournament.
We will get to that in just a bit. Let's turn back to Marwan right now. Sir Alex Ferguson famously shied away from signing African players in large part to the complications of losing them during the January-February period to the Africa Cup of Nations. The tournament is now following the schedule of the European season summer for the first time. Marwan, why is this, and what are the benefits going to be for the players?
I think the benefits in general for the tournament, if it's going to be in the summer, are two things. Whether it's the benefit for the clubs and their players, that they don't have to leave mid-season and face the possibility of a compressed 10-month season where you have to go to the national team, to the qualifiers, then back, then play for your club, then go to the tournament far away, then return again. It becomes very, very hectic to the players. It also gives them a possibility that if they play in the summer, then they do well, then they have a full transfer window in which they can get picked up by other clubs. For example, if we're saying in mid-season, in January, February, most transfer windows will be closed. So if a player has a big season, a club will need to wait until the summer in most countries in Europe, for example, to pick up that player. Regarding the other aspect, marketing-wise, for the tournament itself is great. You have a period in the summer where there's no league football, and people will usually miss watching league football and turn to watching other tournaments, like, for example, Copa America and such. So why not have the AFCON in this period where you can raise viewership? People can be looking forward to something in the summer before the new season begins, and much more. It would be much more enjoyable then.
And Marwan, coming to you, Sami, rather, as we still talk about the changes in the tournament, this new format has allowed for 3 new teams. Of course, the expanded format, 24 teams now, not up from 16 in previous years. Why did CAF opt for this new format, and how is it working out so far?
Well, the reason why they opted for this format is if you look at what was happening in the Euro Cup, they also increased the number of teams that were playing there. In the World Cup as well, they moved from 24 to 32 teams. So there was that need in Africa to also expand it to allow as many teams as possible. And if you look at the teams that have been able to make it this time around, we are also talking about teams, say, like Tanzania. Tanzania have not been at the Cup of Nations for over 30 years. Burundi only making their debut in this particular Africa Cup of Nations. Madagascar as well making their debut. Benin has not been here for a while. Kenya has not been at the Cup of Nations for over 15 years. So increasing the number of teams that were participating increased the chances of other teams also being able to make it to the African Cup of Nations and just being able to compete, because we're talking about the premier tournament in Africa, the tournament that every African team would like to play for. And just like Anwar has said there, he's basically pointed out the issue about transfer markets. So we see a very big opportunity for players playing in the African Cup of Nations from very smaller teams that don't really get scouts going there to be able to scout the players, being able now to get a chance to go to Egypt and look at all these players. And we might see a few signings from Africa just from having it in June. Indeed. And also expanding the number of teams.
Indeed, because the scouting level is quite high. Very quickly, I'll come to you, Simeon. You're probably the best place to talk to us about what it's like as a player being there for the first time on the international stage.
Well, definitely, you know, the nervousness is there, but also the excitement of the possibilities of getting scouted and getting bigger opportunities for you as a player. You know, you find nations like Kenya, you know, we have talented players, yes, but they've not got the privilege to grace such a stage. So you might have a team that, yes, did not qualify, but there are a number of players, 2, 3, or 4 players that can definitely grace the big stage, stages like La Liga, EPL, and such. So when you get to this stage, you could be nervous, yes, but you're also excited at this opportunity, but because it's pretty much a lifetime opportunity for you.
All right, indeed. We're going to keep the conversation going. We're going to a short break now. And when we come back, we'll have more on the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations. Don't go away.
China Global Television Network. From broadcast centers in Beijing, Washington, and Nairobi. A unique global perspective. 6 channels and a video content service. News when you want it and where you want it. On TV screens, websites, mobile platforms, and social media. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back to Talk Africa. Still with me, I'm Marwan Saeed, Sami Muraya and Simeon Mulama. Before the break, we looked at the tournament so far. Let's now shift our focus to what may lie ahead and also some challenges that African football faces. Now, Marwan, African football has had its challenges. It goes without saying. Stories of corruption and unpaid bonuses are unfortunately common across the continent. However, FIFA has taken an unprecedented move by taking over management of CAF and appointing General Secretary Fatma Samura as the FIFA General Delegate for Africa for a 6-month period. Why is this happening?
Honestly, if we describe it any less than it's been a mess over the past while, with all the corruption allegations against the Ahmed and some others in CAF, with the Amr Fahmy situation. It's been really a big mess for African football. We would not like African football to be portrayed this way. We would not like to say that we want African football to move forward, but then some things like the police taking in the head of CAF to questioning. It's been a very difficult period for him, and that's understandable. It has hindered his chances moving forward to stay as CAF's head. But again, this is not what African football needs. If we can't be able to trust ourselves or to run it properly in a way that will make us move forward and evolve together, and that's not just talking, because more often than not, we always say we want African football to change, we want African football to move forward, but change comes from within. And if we're not able to change ourselves and leave the ways that many others used to do, then the intervention from FIFA could be actually a good thing, because it's clear that we do not have the proper know-how on how to run some things, not all things, but some things within CAF. So the FIFA intervention, it can be actually a good thing because they have more experience, they can guide us, but I hope we learn something from what they'll be able to do with us.
And Sami, coming to you right now, obviously FIFA has in the past frowned on government interference in football. Why exactly have they decided to take this move right now?
Well, if you look at the allegations that were placed against Ahmed, we're looking at issues to do with, one, misappropriation of funds, giving out tenders to subsidiaries to an amount of $800,000 instead of going directly to the supplier. So very serious allegations there. Using 400,000 USD for transportation in Madagascar as well as Cairo, Egypt, where already FIFA has and CAF have satellite offices. So you cannot be able to justify all these huge amounts of money that are being spent on the side when you know very well that some of these things are catered for. Then we are also talking about sexual assault allegations. We just saw a bungling up just this year of the CAF Champions League final between Wydad Casablanca and Esperance of Tunisia. And what happened after that is that Esperance themselves came out and literally called out Ahmed and said that he was a corrupt leader, and that's why the problem that they encountered in that. And it's because Wydad Casablanca players walked out because of a VAR decision that they were not happy about. So Esperance players were asked to bring back the medals and return everything, and this match will be played after the African Cup of Nations. So we have Ahmed, who came in with a lot of promises, and yes, we have to give him credit for some of the good things that he has done, including what we've spoken about, changing the Cup of Nations season from January, February to June, July, doing the same with the Confederations Cup as well as the Champions League in Africa. So he has done a few good things, but then some of the bad things again that he has done go against, one, the FIFA statutes as well as the CAF statutes.
And they will of course be investigated. Simeon, let me come to you very quickly. Is African football at a crossroads right now then?
I think it is, yes, because we've seen FIFA to be that big, the big brother, you know, that overlooks and gives insight and gives guidance. We've seen cases of clubs not paying their players, maybe in East Africa, players running to FIFA and getting the guidance to that, and eventually justice is served. You know, to some extent, we look at him as a big brother at FIFA. But then, on the other hand, questions are asked about FIFA as well, because we know there are investigations at FIFA that are happening about misappropriation of funds and everything. So, how is it that you're not able to take care of your own home, but you feel you're in a position to take care of mine? So we are at Crossroads, definitely, because once the head of the African Football Federation, CAF, Confederation of African Football, it has a problem, then it means there's stunted growth in development plans and projects for countries that are affiliated to CAF. So as it stands right now, yes, we are at Crossroads. We hope that this will get, the CAF and FIFA and everything will get over this as fast as we can, so that we can move forward and develop the game at the rate that you're supposed to.
But at the moment, just to add very quickly, it's a 6-month transitional period, so we should look at it positively.
With a possibility to renew.
Indeed. All right, let me we're almost out of time. I'll go to Marwan very quickly. Which players, Marwan, do you think might be making moves to bigger clubs after this tournament?
Well, it's very difficult. We have a lot of special players in this tournament, but I believe if I'm going to speak for Egypt, for example, I believe Mahmoud Hassan Trezeguet has done what is required from him to move to a bigger club other than Qasim Pasha from Turkey. I think the eyes will be on him this tournament indeed.
All right, gentlemen, I'll ask you very quickly, which teams are likely to surprise us and what are the predictions in the final? I'll begin with you, Sami.
Personally, for me, the team that has impressed me so far in terms of underdogs, Madagascar, and I see them qualifying. Yes. So I see them making it to the knockout stages. Yes.
All right, Simeon?
Surprise for me will be Madagascar as well, but I'm looking at also Morocco making it to the final.
Before I'll also ask the same question that was asked to Marwan. Which players have you been looking at that may be making a move to a bigger club?
I'll have a bias with the Kenyan team, and Michael Olunga definitely should be making a move to a bigger league. He deserves it. I think he's worked hard enough for it. Ayub Timbe as well, Eric Johanna. So quite, Johanna, also Marcelo, Eric, our left back, Eric Johanna, Eric Marcelo. So I'm looking at least 4 players, like we said earlier, that, we have never had a chance to get to this big stage. Now they've had a chance, and I think their performance deserves a better league.
Sami?
Pasitao of South Africa, so I see him being able to go back to Brighton. He's been loaned out to the Belgian 2nd division, so he's proved himself so far in the Cup of Nations. So I see Brighton just deciding to bring him back home.
All right, and Marwan, I'll give you the very last word. Which team do you think will be in the final and take the cup?
Will be in the final. It's very hard not to say Egypt, to be honest. On home soil, we have the backing of the fans. It's not about being biased, but the presidents already say that. So I believe it will be, if I was going to choose now, it will be tied between Egypt and Algeria.
And finally, gentlemen, just your general comments on the tournament so far.
So far, for me, the tournament has not disappointed. And just looking at some of the groups, they've been really, really open. In fact, I know today we were discussing the mathematical chances of teams qualifying from Group D that has Morocco, Ivory Coast, South Africa, and Namibia. And at this particular moment, as things sit, despite Namibia losing 2 matches, they still have a chance. So very exciting African Cup of Nations. And I'll also weigh in terms of which team I think will go to the final.
Yes.
Morocco. For me, I agree with Simeon, and that's because Havre, their coach, has already won twice with two different teams. First with Zambia, then with the Ivory Coast. And just looking at the way Morocco are playing right now, I don't see why they can't go all the way to the final.
Simeon.
Well, it's been a great tournament. I have to applaud teams like Uganda, who they came in the last tournaments, looked like underdogs. I think they learned their lessons. They've got the experience. They're playing very well in their group, standing at 4 points right now as we speak. Some exciting moments from the debutants and the teams that have, for the longest time, been looked at as underdogs.
And Marwan, your final comments?
I think I just wanted to comment on something regarding Morocco. I believe we have a lot of issues that we've seen in the Moroccan camp that sometimes they do not do well in the big tournaments. So it's pretty difficult for me actually to see Morocco winning the Africa Cup of Nations unless, you know, things happen like have been happening in the club competitions where some decisions have gone to their side, basically.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your insights on Talk Africa this evening. A very exciting tournament so far and plenty more action to go. That's all the time we have for this week, but thank you to my guests, Marwan Saeed in Cairo, sports analyst and general manager at kingfoot.com. In studio here with me, sports journalist and analyst Sami Muraya and Simeon Mulama, a former Kenyan international. Remember, we'd love to hear your feedback on the show through our social media handles on Facebook and Twitter. You can also catch the show on our YouTube playlist. Do keep the conversation going and tune in again next week for more Talk Africa. From me, Mahia Mutua, and the team here in Nairobi, it's goodbye and enjoy the rest of AFCON 2019.